Hey. Wow. It's Monday. Monday here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the TruthWire. It is truth time. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula.
And I'm your other host, Fiorella.
Is she behind? Are you lagging again? What are you seeing, Jayme? Is it looking okay? Is it me? Because my internet and my computer's been wonky today, and it's been crazy.
Well, Fee's a little fuzzy.
I'm talking about in real life. We know that she's, it's one of those fuzzies, All
right.
Well,
I'll be back. Keep the chat.
I'll keep it going. I'll introduce our co-host and stuff. Oh my God, what a show today, guys! This is it's crazy right now where we're at because we're kind of in that space right now. It's like, is this something organic? Is this something that's planned? Is this a psyop? Who knows about these things? Who's covered the George Floyd riots or protests, depending on what you want to call them in the streets? There was meaning to them. Were there bad actors? Were there good actors? What were the demands? Is this right? Is this wrong? What place should the federal government have? What place did the states' right have? There's so much that goes into this. Is this the color revolution that people like Miriam Hanen were talking about in her book? And color revolution is not a good revolution, ladies and gentlemen. Color revolution is pitting neighbor against neighbor. And right now I'm in South Florida, where I should be in LA. But that's okay because we do have somebody in LA, someone in the streets, someone who's out there doing some amazing work, some amazing footage, is getting a whole different perspective. Is not going to get much sleep over the next couple of weeks if we're predicting right on what's going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him, you love him. Not only is he our colleague, our co-host, but he happens to be a great friend in such a short amount of time. I can say that, ladies and gentlemen. I love him. You love him. Matt Weinglass.
Thanks, Pasta. Thanks for having me on here. This is, unfortunately, the timing worked out for something as serious as this, that it's everything that's going on right here in LA. Just putting it together, like you mentioned, it's happening in real time. This isn't over. This is not in the rearview mirror. This is happening real time. So we have to understand what's going on, and we have to understand what we're going to do to respond and move forward, because this will continue throughout the next several days, minimally speaking. So, yeah, excited to have this conversation right now.
I'm so sorry. I'm actually going to be on RT at 5 p.m. Eastern today. I don't know if anybody still watches that. I think a lot of people still do, right? They probably watch it on Rumble. They could be watching it on Odyssey. Who else knows where it's being streaming from? But I'll be on there at 5 o'clock to talk about this. Today is going to be interesting, ladies and gentlemen, when Fiorella gets back. Because Fiorella was out in those streets with me, too, as well. Actually, she went out to way more rallies than me, her and Johnny. Johnny's out there right now, surveying, seeing what's going on. Once again, he's kind of in that spot, like, all right, what's going on? It seems like George Floyd all over again. And when I say that, it's that there's a lot of concentrated organizing on what needs to be done and what we're looking to accomplish, right? Angelinos, and I am one of them when I lived out there, we don't want the fucking feds there. We don't want ICE there. In fact, our guest today happens to be a very intriguing guest. I know a lot of people criticize him. I have a relationship with him. I went knocking doors with him when I was reporting it. His name is Alex Villanueva. He's the ex-sheriff of Los Angeles. He was the sheriff during the George Floyd protest riots. He will be on today in about an hour or so to talk with us. So it's going to be very interesting. Matt, there's so much that is just going on, and I'm glad that you got on the ground because I know, here's Fee, I know you're going to have a whole different, guys, you're going to have a whole different perspective on it, right? So, Fam, I don't know if you want to talk about this. Maybe you want to tilt your camera down a little bit, Fam, because your chin's really near the bottom of the thing, and there's a lot of space up above, just a little bit.
My camera, I'd have to get up and do it.
It's okay. Right. Sit up tall then. Standing at 4'9", Fiorella Isabel is with us today. Fee, give us a little perspective on from what we witnessed, because I just said, I went out in the streets with those things, but you and Johnny did even more. You guys got arrested. I remember I was working in Palm Springs, right outside of Palm Desert, actually, at a restaurant during COVID. You guys were in the streets, and I got a call. It's like from Keith, and Keith's like, dude, Fee and Johnny just got arrested. I'm like, did they not have their press passes on? No, they had them on. LAPD didn't care. Give us your perspective on everything that's going on. Set the table, and then we'll hand it over to Matt for a little while. Of course. By the way, on this show, we would tell you about the Nick Sorters and the Benny Johnsons because they're fucking MAGA media and they are psyops, and now they are fermenting divisive fucking shit right now, when at a time when we need to be calm, cool-headed, and figure out what's going on. Fee, get into it. Let the people know what's happening.
Well, I want to hear from Matt because he's on the ground now, but I will say one of the things that I just posted on my Substack, I talked about my experience in LA, and many of you have followed us for a while. No, we covered a lot of things in LA in that decade between 2015 and right before 2020, around 2021, 2020. And it was, for me, it was pretty intense, I think, and eye-opening to see the police violence. I mean, we didn't just cover the George Floyd protests in Los Angeles, but we went all the way to Portland. We went into Seattle. We went all over the place. I even saw some protests in Florida when that was happening. But what you do find out very quickly are the agent provocateurs. You really see the feds getting in there. You see people who are trying to stir something up, whether they're just people that are paid or whether they're people that have ties to the police or the intelligence apparatus. They're there to make it look like the protesters are the ones that you should focus on. And as Pasta was saying, a lot of the right foments this sort of narrative where these people are the ones that are the troublemakers. They don't talk about the issues that they're protesting. And then you have other opportunists that come in to protest. Essentially Democratic operatives. You have, the people that want to make this about Donald Trump, or the people that want to focus on the politics of it all, when it's actually the immigration issue is an issue that's pretty much weaponized by both liberals and Republicans to fundraise and to divide and conquer. And this is an issue that could easily be resolved, but it is not resolved for a multitude of reasons that we have discussed on the show many times. Among that, of course, are economic ones. There's money to be made for these parties. And when you are at a protest, it is very obvious. I mean, if you're experienced after a while, you see the same type of, bricks that are laid out there perfectly, that are clearly put up there by cops. Essentially, you see the same type of masked individuals that try to stir up things for no reason. And you'll constantly see protesters saying, hey, we just wanted to, show how what we're talking about, to talk about the issues and not get arrested. You'll see that being said all the time, but it's so hard to really break it down. There's a lot of nuance in this because there's so much going on at the same time, and there's so much chaos, and these chaos agents are exactly there to profit off of that and to manipulate things, so the media only gets to see a snippet of it, and the majority of the media do not go into these deep into these places. They actually stay outside of them. And then you have people that pretend to be media, as we were talking about, Pasta, that are actual activists, and then they're not really media, but they're still like, trying to film things. Well, so Johnny and I, my brother, during the George Floyd protests in LA, we filmed the violence that the police were using against a lot of these protesters who were fairly young, probably in their 20s or teens. And it was, they were using rubber bullets. They were using all sorts of just complete and total mechanisms that they didn't need to use, this violence, right? And we all know that they're trained, many of them, by the Israeli forces. And so if you started filming them, they would get upset with you. And eventually we were filming what they were doing, how they were like, what was it? They were encircling people. And they were going to arrest them. And as we were filming them,
is that the word? Cuddling?
Yes, kettling. And they were kettling the people. And so then we were there, and we were going to film it. We were filming it, and then they didn't separate us from them. And then, even though we had the press pass and everything was a real press pass, they decided that, they were going to take us in. And that day they went after a lot of journalists, even arrested a CNN guy. So, they went crazy. They got a lawsuit handed to them after the fact. But the point I'm making is that the LAPD are not to be trusted, to be honest. They are looked on as some of the most corrupt police forces, apart from the NYPD, They're among the most. Of course, you can talk about Chicago as well, but I really want to hear what, Matt, you've seen on the ground, because I have a feeling it parallels much of what I've seen in that chaos and all of the things happening at the same time.
And Matt, before you jump on in there, Jayme, make sure there's a guy, Field of Steel. Please star his comments. We'll get to the people after. We'll talk to them because I know there's going to be a lot of people jumping in. Well, Donald Trump has the right to do this right now. You know, if you want to be a citizen, do it legally. We'll have those discussions. Feel that steel, the steel. I have answers for you. I have debates. We can talk about this, guys. Sheriff Alex Villanueva just texted me. He'll be in at 3:30 in less than an hour. But Matt's got a lot to cover. Matt, in the spirit of Christopher Walken, in the I need more cowbell, use the room. Take your time. Use this space. Do it Matt Weinglass style. Get in there, pal.
All right. No, this is something that does deserve some thoughtful analysis. So the fact that this is, like we said earlier, this is ongoing. I'll be back on the ground in the field today when we're done. So I'm glad to be able to check in with you guys and walk people through this. So let's start from the top. So we understand the two camps that have been created here. So you see the ideas that on the Trump side, he ran on this issue of immigration. This is the thing he promised. This is the thing that he's showing he's hardcore about, and he's going to come through on his promises. That's the setup for the Trump side. And now let's be clear of the timing here. When he started in January, he was doing the deportation levels that were still half of Obama's best year, 2013. So just to get an idea, the daily deportation levels Obama had back in 2013 was 1,200 people a day. Trump has been doing 600 people a day since he got elected. So understand the perspective there that he's still lower numbers than Obama. But again, these are the campaign messaging is you elect me, I'm going to be hard. I'm going to solve this immigration problem. It's only in the recent couple weeks that he upped that number. This is what started I guess you would say planted the seed to create this, what we're now calling a PSYOP. It is a PSYOP. We'll get to this, to how they were.
Can I say real quickly, Matt, just so people have perspective from what we hear? And I was talking to my good friend who's an activist. She ran for Congress, Angelica Duenas, and there's people, who in LA City Council. There's people in the state legislation who are speaking out against what Donald Trump is doing. Tom Hooman has directed ICE to have 2,000 arrests a day moving forward for the rest of the year. And where are you going to get those people at? Well, the biggest concentrated area of undocumented workers is where? Los Angeles, California. Please continue, Matt.
Yeah, and that's important to understand the environment specifically in LA. And this is why LA was a target for this PSYOP to happen. It's because we're talking about the Latino population here. It's the majority here. People don't know that outside of here. It's the majority of people here are Latino. So you are affected. The people living here are affected by this, whether they're directly or through family or through friends. They are definitely associated with somebody that is affected by this policy. So when we saw the increase to 2,000, and that did happen over this last couple of weeks, primarily in the last week. But what we know is that it stopped. This part's important. So he carried out the threat into actuality, and then he stopped. And so when the protesters came out, when this started in Compton, in Paramount, 2 nights ago, and the target was an ICE station where they were going to apparently start from that point and raid the Home Depot, which was right across the street. That's where this began. So we were there to cover this 2 nights ago in Compton. Now, this is the place where the LA riots occurred. So we got to understand that there's a sentiment in the air that things are going to get down and dirty and that there's going to be a war breakout in the street. But we were there to see this. Now, look, we know how police are here. We know that they're ready to attack when given the order. And it's very easy to get them to make that excuse to start the attack. All they need is one excuse. And that's why you get the people that will attack them first, throw the bricks. The bricks are in place. The bottles are in place. They're the first ones to initiate the attack. And then the police have every right to fire back at the crowd, rubber bullets, all sorts of stuff. We're talking about the tear gas, all sorts of weird stuff that makes people confused. I mean, we were all over the place. We couldn't even see. Our eyes were all hurt. It was crazy. This was Saturday night. Now look, once we understood this was going to go to Union Station last night, we made sure to show up there as well and cover that. And it was hard to see, can they get the same type of results? Oh, you bet they could, because all it takes is people in the crowd to antagonize the police and give them a reason to fire on the crowd. And that's what happened. We saw it over and over. So the 101 freeway got, I guess you could say the entire thing got closed off for a couple hours throughout the second half of the afternoon yesterday. We do have some footage of that. I'd like to show in a little bit, but I want to piggyback off what Craig said. The right-wing commentaries, the ones that are their job is to escalate this to their audience. They're going to deliberately, people like Nick Sorda, like you said, Craig, they're going to deliberately show this as that the police are the ones in jeopardy. They're the ones being targeted. They're the ones that are being surrounded. I was there exactly at the same place that a lot of these people are sharing footage from. And that's not what's going on there. This is, it's not, the police aren't the ones in trouble. They're the ones that are ready to attack. We know where their training comes from. So both sides are being played. And the idea is that this theater piece is put together in order to create justification for what? To bring on more surveillance state.
Yeah.
That's
can I interject here for a second too, as well, because you did mention, and fam, I was telling you about this, Jayme, look at you, the raids that are taking place. I've heard that they've been raiding some crazy locations. Like I can't confirm this 100%, but we heard they raided a fifth grade graduation ceremony in a Latino area because they knew they were going to just grab a bunch of, undocumented workers right there. I don't know. I haven't seen footage of this. I heard they grabbed some 11-year-old or 14-year-old kid on his way to volleyball practice. I've heard they're like just where they're raiding and where they're going into seems quite scary. Restaurants, I heard a lot of restaurants because they know the community and the Latino community. It has works in a lot of the restaurant business. So I've heard the raids are they're not like going after criminals. They're just going after anybody that they can deport because they want to get that number up to 2,000 a day.
Okay, so by my estimation, this is a short term. It's real. It's really happening. Yes, these places are getting raided, but I feel like it was a momentary thing to send the shock and awe waves, and now everybody's responding to that. We talked to some local store owners, supermarket. Private owners of a supermarket who rely on the workers to show up and get them the produce. And they all started to stay home because they were petrified. Just because you have these, I don't want to say isolated incidents, but they're not going to continue. These were designed to get people afraid. So the fear is what's overcoming everybody in LA right now because of these short run incidences that did happen, and they are scary. But Trump is we're looking at the numbers right now. They've already backstepped on it. It's not going to continue from what I see. Now, he could try another one down the line if this doesn't go the way they want it to do. But to me, what I'm seeing is it is going exactly the way they want it to. Yeah. The language we're seeing on Twitter that's going out to people that are looking from the outside in is it's time to punish the people in LA. They are insurrectionists. They are out of control. They are radical commie lefties that need to be taught a lesson, and it's time to bring in Palantir right now. That's the language going out. They might not need to do any more theater about this because all you need is to manufacture the public consent that it's time to bring in the surveillance state. So it was never. The point is, guys, I just want to put this in. The point is, it was never about the immigration. The immigration was the leverage that Trump used. It's the means to get to this point. So although the fear is real, and it absolutely is here in the Latino communities, it was created in order to bring on this what the thing is really about, and that is the surveillance state.
I 100% agree, actually. And the thing is, it's not coincidental that Trump did this business deal with Palantir, which not only Palantir, but other companies that have ties to the Department of Homeland Security and ICE, because remember, ICE came after the 9/11 and war on terror. It came as a result of that, and that's what we have to this day. Everything we're seeing now came pretty much out of the Patriot Act and has just been built up since. And Trump's deal with Palantir came at the exact right before these protests began. So it's almost like they needed people to be riled up. They needed this to happen in order to justify, to have the pretext to enact these policies, even though they were already going to enact them anyway. And now, of course, the only way this could happen without the same people that hate the globalists, that hate the deep state, that hate the surveillance state, not protesting it would be because Trump would be the one to do it. And now what you have is the right basically trying to make this, oh, it's just the rioters, it's just the crazy left-wing commies. What does Trump say? The radical left. When it's actually it's more than that. And I think you do have, like, in every of these protests, you have different people who understand what's going on, but then you also have the Democrats who are coming out of the woodworks, the establishment Democrats, the neoliberals, and they're criticizing Trump as if they are going to provide any sort of solution. So when a lot of people outside of LA who don't understand what's going on there, who don't understand US politics in general, come and comment on this, they're like, oh, well, Trump's bringing law and order. And I've heard it from a lot of analysts here who are, tend to be on the conservative side, coming from Moscow, and they're like, oh, it's good that Trump's bringing in the National Guard. He's gonna, settle this immigration issue. And I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. You shouldn't be promoting the more of a police state. This is exactly the exact Israeli intelligence that is embedded now, and Elon Musk was a huge part of it. So while they were having their little feud, they then came in and pushed this through. And again, we go back to the distraction aspect of all of that versus what's happening now.
Yeah. Can I add to something really quickly, Matt? Yeah. Because I really just think, because we're all talking about what this could be for, because we saw that after J6, right? Like the security state, the police force, especially the what do you call it? The congressional police over there. They got more money and budget for themselves. The state got more spying power. They were allowed to look at bank accounts to track people down who were actually at the protest itself. I mean, there's so many things. But I think what is missing is the fact that there are some of us out here that think that this is a time of acceleration. And this could be even something more, where it could be pop off to a color revolution and people are fighting each other in the streets, right? Like they're obviously not looking at what's going on. They're not looking at the ruling class. They're not looking at their neighbor. And this thing seems like it has that type of kind of ability to do it. And by the way, I just want to say that this whole thing right here, paid activists, we've seen this time and time again. No. These are not, I mean, there might be some people, paid agitators, but the majority of the people that are out there are emotional. They're feeling this. They feel that what the people who are against this are, of what they're trying to do, they're pro-immigrant. And they feel this is a form of xenophobia, of racism. I call this neo-xenophone, I can't even say it. Neo-xenophobic, because it is like, if you care so much that Trump is cleaning up this problem in a blue state where Angelenos, by and large, don't want ICE in there at all, you know what I'm saying? You're just being ridiculous at this point. These aren't paid activists. These are people who are really emotionally driven, are in the streets, and they're confused. And by the way, fam, we were talking about, there are some good things that what people want, but like PSL is out there with their truck driving around. They're not even talking to the Party of Peace and Freedom, right? Who's doing some stuff. Like all the leftist groups who want certain things, who want to get a message across, they're not even talking with themselves. So all their demands are different and everything seems so confused. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. Let me work off of this, because this is important so our viewers understand what the sentiment in the air actually is and why people are showing up. So I'm gonna double down on this. The people in LA are scared. This is a Latino population They saw the deportations, they saw the ICE raids, and they are scared to death, and they're showing up because they want to stop any more of this from happening, and they're willing to put themselves out on the line. Let me walk you guys through how this taking advantage of this type of sentiment, which is a real thing, is then used against you when it's reported on purpose in a dishonest way by other reporters. I don't even want to call them reporters, but like the Nick Sordos out there. So Jayme, if you could bring up the Nick Sordo thing and get that ready, I'm going to show you. Actually, let's show that one first. If you can grab this, this is the type of thing that's being reported on right-wing platforms right now to try and show you that these people have shown up for the wrong reasons. And then I'm going to show you what we actually filmed from the exact same location. So this is Nick. This is what he tweeted out. And I was furious when I saw this because I'm right here and somebody probably sent him this footage and we're filming the same thing. So Nick Sordo says California Highway Patrol officers have now been cornered and are trapped under an overpass as violent insurrectionists launch rocks and explosives at them. LAPD is nowhere to be found. Well, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. They were everywhere to be found. And the National Guard was arriving too as this was happening. So he says these guys need your help. And then blaming everything on Newsom, which is another story as far as Newsom not wanting the National Guard. We can talk about that part, but show the footage that this manipulative footage. And I'm going to show you what we shot at the exact same place. Okay. So what they're pretending to do here, you can see this. It looks like that they are being surrounded by the radical protesters from all sides. That's not actually happening. It's a standoff that is happening, and I'm going to show you the standoff from our perspective in a second. Okay, so we've seen enough of this. Let's pause that one. Okay. Now I'm going to show you how that started because we filmed the whole thing. This is the protesters, as Craig said, the ones that showed up because their right to protest is to stand up against these ICE raids, and they show up in good faith to do that. And sometimes that means, as we know, some of the protest techniques is blocking off the freeway with their protests. Not attacking people, but blocking off freeways. And we can debate the effectiveness of that, but this is what they actually did. This is how that started. I'll bring this down. So you see how so this is kind of well coordinated as far as bringing the big sign. That's the one that's going to block the road. And again, we can talk about the effectiveness or the ineffectiveness of this approach, but this is not attacking highway patrol. Just to be clear, this is exactly the same place. Okay, now I'm going to show you what happens next. So this is taking the one side of the this is at the Alameda Union Station exit, right at the 101. This side is the first one they blocked off. The second side, the LAPD ended up blocking off the other side of the freeway, and I'll show you that, guys, in a second. So again, this is a technique for protesting, and we can debate the effectiveness of this, but they're not being violent. They are demonstrating to stop ICE from coming in and raiding all their places and schools and businesses and family. That's what they're doing. Okay, now I'm going to show you guys. We can see a little bit more of this. Yeah. So obviously the police are on their way. They're gonna not let this go on for too long, but that's what you sign up for when you do something like this. So here we go. I'm going to go to the next one. This is what happened. And this is exactly the same location Nick Sordo showed us.
Nick Sordo.
Exactly. Okay. So the police then stopped the traffic behind that overpass, and they set up their line there. Now, look, I got some more. I haven't gone through all the footage here, but this is the same area. Now, what happened was once the police set up their barricade, they started shooting smoke bombs at any direction of anything they heard or saw. And so now this is where it gets, now I'm going to show more of this on our show tomorrow. And then I have a ton of footage to go through, but I want you guys to understand that this is where the deliberate acts of violence, or I don't want to say violence, but they're the threatening to the police, giving them an excuse to fire on the crowd. They're the ones that start firing on everybody. Once the provocateurs come in and start throwing bricks and bottles at them. Now, they weren't being attacked from all sides. They had the backside of this, the behind that bridge. They had that entire place completely sealed off. There was nobody coming at them from that side. So that tweet that went out was misrepresenting that they were being surrounded when really it was the protesters being pushed away and eventually up this overpass. If you guys see this up ramp here on the left, they ended up pushing everyone back up there with tear gas. So there was no threat to the LAPD. They just needed an excuse to fire at the crowd. And they got that excuse when enough of these plants throwing stuff at them that was not part of the protest. And you saw it happen. That happened over and over again. So this is, again, they're totally fine. They're totally safe. They're not being threatened. They're looking for excuses to smoke bomb and fire at the crowd, which they did over and over and over again with tear gas and smoke bombs. They're totally fine.
Which, by the way, and I don't know how Fiorella. So this is the same underpass where Fiorella and I years ago caught something on. They were on the highway, and they were on the right side of the bridge. Like when you come through the same coming traffic, by the opposite side of the bridge, the protesters. Now, I don't agree with going and protesting and stopping traffic and messing with the every average day people. I like what they did in Beverly Hills, where they were marching to, the areas where people aren't affected and the people who are the decision makers. I would rather march to, judges, lawmakers. I love the ones that were out in front of what was the guy's name's house, fam, who was part of the, they kept on doing like protest in front of his house. I forgot his name, but he worked for the Biden administration anyways. He was
not Garcetti then.
Mayor Garcetti. They went to Mayor Garcetti's house out in front and protest that out in front of his house. Those are the things I like, right? So I don't necessarily agree with this here.
Of course.
However, we have people in those groups. Remember, fam, don't tell somebody how to protest. I'm like, the fuck we won't. Like, if they're going to be protesting with us, they should be protesting peacefully and not, causing any destruction.
I mean, I agree with that. I mean, I think there's a limit. I don't think you should. I think people protest are different ways. If protests are supposed to respect the law, then how is it a protest? Like there's a lot of things that go back to that, right? Like I'm more of like I support things that are more would be considered radical in the West, but not radical in other places in the world. But I think there's a place and a time for it. Is it as effective as going after, for example, the Israeli weapons manufacturers themselves, like going and stopping the ships from getting these weapons? I think that is more effective than just protesting. But
everyday traffic, stopping them,
but it doesn't. I mean, they're still protesting. They're still exercising
civil
their
disobedience,
right?
Yeah.
It's still that. It's still, they shouldn't be shot with rubber bullets for it. They shouldn't be attacked in this way for it. But as Matt was saying, there's always these agent provocateurs, and as you were also saying, Matt, like, it's crazy because the way you are showing how these people lie on social media when you're literally on the ground, that's happened to me so many times, especially during the George Floyd protests, when these people, a lot of the same ones, what's his name? The guy that's the Asian looking guy, whatever.
Ian Miles Chong.
Yeah, he would take videos, and there's another guy. They would take my videos that I would film, switch them out, edit them to make it look like the protesters were doing something. And I'm like, you're literally lying. You're not even here. You're taking my videos and other people's videos and turning it into something it isn't. And it's so frustrating because these people get promoted in the algorithm. They get all these views. And then some media, including some of the ones here, will literally say, oh, look, the police are being attacked by the protesters. And I'm like, that's literally
Yeah.
is impossible. The police have military grade weapons. There's no way they're these defenseless creatures, that are just at the mercy of these protesters. It's insane.
By the way, Matt, where you were at there, so just really quickly to finish the story, on the other side of that underpass, the protesters got onto the highway. We were there. Me and Fee were right there with them. We were following them. And then all of a sudden, 2 state troopers come through like they're going to push through. And it was like weird, like you're going to really try to push through the protesters. And there was a couple people who went after the car, and a guy threw a skateboard through the back of the police car, and the police car sped through and got out of there, right? And people started going crazy. And that's all they were reporting is like, oh, the protesters bashed this police car. And I saw the kid who did it. The kid was a homeless kid who just joined the protest. He wasn't part of the organizers. The organizers that were there happened to be there right now. Medina Abdullah, right? So she was the Cornell West vice president on the ticket. She's a professor. She was the one leading the rally that day. And at the end of the day, 6 o'clock, we're closing up. We're going home. They had people watching to make sure they wouldn't cause violence, that they wouldn't cause wreckage. But when you have these agent provocateurs come in, or just people who aren't part of the organization who are just mad and want to cause chaos, that gives the ammunition to the Trump and the xenophobic people, the neo-xenophobic people who want to push this certain narrative that the protesters are the ones who are the bad ones and stuff. I wouldn't want to be a cop in this situation. Hell no.
But they love their job. Let's be clear. They're not out there going, oh my God, this is so hard. What do? We have to be heroic. We got to be brave. We're the superhero team. That's not what's going on. They're salivating over the opportunity. I'm telling you, over and over in the last 48 hours, we've been set up. We've been doing these lives. And I'm telling you, like the cops driving right by, I saw it with my own eyes. I mean, these provocateurs, they're grabbing glass bottles, bricks. The cops are speeding by and they're hitting them on the cop cars. The cop cars don't crash out. They keep driving, but it's almost like they got their feelings hurt. Can you believe they hit us? And it was just an excuse for them to turn around, line their shit up, and start firing rubber bullets at everyone. We had to get the hell out of there. They were
by the way, those who I think are the feds are, by the way, the ones who were throwing the shit at the cop cars. I'm like, those are feds.
Yes, because you have actual protesters lined up. This is where we were getting a live shot. And then they come out of nowhere. They just come out and they have bricks and they have these glass bottles. They chuck them at the cars. And there's like, you're not really affecting these big, massive police cars. They're going real fast anyways. These guys are just really have a good aim. I'm telling you, I was like, wow, that's pretty good aim, because these guys are going like 40, 50 down and they just chug it at them. And it's like, oh, you hit them. Yeah. And it's like, they got, oh, Matt, our feelings got hurt. Let's turn around and just start firing at the crowd. And that's what they did. And we're like in the middle of, we're like, oh my God, we got to get out of here. But they come out of nowhere. They're not part of the actual protesters. So I saw that time and time again over the last 48 hours. And we're going to see more of it soon. I want to add on to this thing, because you guys brought up January 6th earlier. This part's important because this is what gives the leverage for both sides to keep blaming the other side about why it's okay to keep doing the thing they're doing. And it keeps this divide even more insane. Like we want to attack each other. Two different realities going on at the same time. So January 6th is being mentioned by Trump supporters as, you guys set the precedent for arresting our people, so we're going to F your people up. That's what we're seeing everywhere.
That's what
right
they
now.
Want too.
There's no like moral compass. There's no, you guys were wrong to treat us this way on January 6th, so we're going to show you how to treat you. Right? No, it's the opposite. It's you set a precedent to be pieces of crap. We're going to do it right back to you. Then you got the left who's saying, oh, now you're bringing in National Guard. Now you're going to come in and beat up on protesters when you had no problem releasing people from the January 6th from jail. As soon as Trump got in, he released all these people. So there's nobody wants to be consistent with the principle. And that's how you end up with tweets like this. I want to show the Laura Loomer one. It's very important because this is the Palantir one. This is where she says to all her people and everybody reading this crap, time to deploy Palantir tech to Los Angeles and deal with the illegals. You know you love to see it. You're lying if you say you wouldn't. And this is based on presenting the protesters as the real insurrectionists. You wanted to call us insurrectionists? Well, guess what? You're the real insurrectionists, and we're gonna teach you an effing lesson. And that's what this is about. and it's coming right now. It's going to be sooner than later.
And all I got to say to Laura Loomer is, pushing the fourth industrial revolution and the Great Reset, you sellout.
Is anyone surprised?
Perfect fucking useful idiot right there.
I don't think anyone should be surprised.
Perfect useful
but the timing,
idiot.
it's like the timing is so
Yeah.
obvious, right?
Yeah.
You see like Trump could have think about this. Trump could have pushed the deportations, the ICE raids at any point. Why now? Why did he wait till after the Palantir contract went through to then say, here we go, we're going to do the thing we ran on? He didn't quite do it in 2017, 2018. He didn't do it in 2019. He's doing it now because he got all the pieces in place to do this. So it's not actually about immigration. It's about the surveillance state.
The argument would be that that's the only promise he's capable of delivering to his base, and that's once again, the neo-xenophobic people, so fucking xenophobic that you're okay with the pissing of the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment out the window. You don't care, and so much that it's a blue state, and you're all about states' rights, and you're okay with it. If you're if you're a Trumper, go do it in the red states. But no, once again, they want to get 2,000 people per day. And the only way to get that, to deliver your promise, is to go into the blue state of California.
Yeah.
So much for states' rights for the conservatives. They don't care anymore.
But remember these numbers.
Not when it's their team.
This is important. The numbers are important. His deportation average up until the last couple of weeks has been 600 a day. That is still half of Obama's best year, 2013. He was doing 1,200 a day. So if you look at this, he deliberately chose now to up that to 2,000. I'm hearing reports of even up to 3,000, but that has already stopped. We did not see any of this happen on Saturday or Sunday. It stopped on Friday. We got the numbers. I'm telling you guys, it's not actually happening now. The fear of what he's done is enough to get people in the streets, and then they can conduct business as they're doing it. We're seeing the theater unfold right in front of us. That's the order of operations. It's important to look at the order and the chronological order of happenings to kind of figure out why we are where we are now, and more importantly, what's happening next. It's not enough to just understand this. We need to figure out what our next move is so we can actually win this thing, because this is going down in real time. It's not over.
Fam, do you think this is going to be pushed to other states, or do you think this is just a wash over? Johnny's there kind of surveilling it, seeing what's going on. And I'm like, Johnny, this is going deep, because this is even more intense than the George Floyd situation, because you do literally, and once again, all these groups that are just trying to make it about Trump out there, or trying to get the microphone now, they're not even talking to each other. So you probably have a list of 5 different demands from 5 different groups, right? You know what I'm saying? Who knows? I mean, I'm sure they'll all be very similar to the fact is, number one, they want ICE out. They want them gone. But I mean, this to me looks like it can get really, really hasty over here. And like I said, I'm seeing this as a real attempt or a push for a possible color revolution right now. I mean, I am really looking at it. And when I mean color revolution, I mean that's pitting brother against brother, American against American. You know what I'm saying? Getting really, really bad here. I don't know. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is just to get more spying power for the state, more funding for agencies. But what are your thoughts? Because I'm looking at this and going, whoa, this could really pop off.
I don't think, I mean, if it pops off, it's not going to be much more than what the last few protests for Gaza are, because that's also part of it. Before Trump made this deal, there was already using surveillance technology, Israeli surveillance technology. Microsoft just admitted last month that they, yes, have been working with Israeli tech to spy on Palestinians in Gaza. There has been this sort of admission before all of this. So I think what we're seeing is the actual going into this technocratic surveillance state that we're living in. And this is one of the excuses that were given. First, it was, you're being anti-Semitic. Now we're going to have to come after you. Most recently, right? Before that, it was COVID and January 6th and the elections and so on and so forth. And now you can't say anything against Israel. You can't, talk against ICE or harbor any sort of person that the police might be looking at. Now people are being picked off and sent to foreign prisons. So these are really real issues. The problem that we have in the US is that people take a very political approach in terms of blaming Trump or blaming the left or liberals. And then it doesn't go beyond that. You don't really see people talk beyond that, like talking about the actual problem, which is the surveillance military apparatus, the national surveillance military apparatus that we have. And until people who are protesting say both Trump and Biden got to go, ICE and what created ICE, right? Why did ICE come about? So they have to really tackle the core problem, the intelligence apparatus, because ICE is just a mechanism of that. So are the police. They only protect the predator class. They're there to protect the predator class. And I think more people are realizing this, but I think it's still not there. So we're not going to get a real revolution. What we would get, Pasta, is what you said.
A color revolution. That's the opposite revolution they want.
Divisive. To just allow them to continue going after people and going after them. And I think they already have everything they need. They've already passed the laws. They've already put in the money. They've been working on this for a while. And now they have the MAGA, who are supposed to be against that, cheering it along because it's the people they don't like.
Yeah. So we want a class revolution. They want a color revolution. Go ahead, Maddie.
This color revolution might happen. I want to give you guys a date, and I just said Jungle Jared chimed in about this right at the same time I was trying to bring this up. June 14th. We need to mark your calendar for Saturday. This is where we're going to know if this thing's going to the next stage or not. If nothing happens, then great, we're fine. It ends in LA, but I don't think so. I think this is a date. It's Trump's birthday. It's Flag Day. This is where he's going to parade around and gloat and have a military celebration and show that he means business. And as a reaction to that, knowing this date is coming, you're going to have, and see, look, Jungle Judge is telling us this right now. More than 1,500 cities across all 50 states are going to be protesting. So it's going to be LA times 50. That's what we're going to see. So if they were,
and that means, Matt, but that also means here goes the security state now.
Exactly.
Sending out more feds. The fact that we know June 14th is right down the road and we know about it coming. The feds know that it's coming. And could be the opportunity to send more feds across all these other places. And, once again.
Go
ahead.
Consider LA as the litmus test for what they can get away with. And it looks like they did, because the narratives are going out to everyone. They're taking the bait. They're falling for this. It's time for Palantir. So it works in LA. You times it by 50. This is this is coming up on Saturday. You're going to get these 50 states behaving the same way as LA. Just they follow the same blueprint. And here we are. We're back to George Floyd, but it's worse than George Floyd because now we have the Palantir contract in place and the technology available that we didn't have last time with Trump, because they was like, let's get him out, let's get Biden in, that whole thing. But now is the time. It's all about the timing. And this is where the stars align for them to do the final nail in the coffin. So we got to understand this and get ahead of it and kind of maybe educate people on what to look out for. And when look out for that misinformation, look out for those psyops. So when we can share that, I actually got a few on camera. We have actual infiltrators that we tracked down yesterday. And we'll be happy to, if there's time at some point, I'd like to share it with you guys so you guys can see. I mean, you guys know, but for the audience to know what to look for, when they're trying to fool us.
Can I say this much too? And it's kind of funny because Fiorella has been out at a protest with me where people were like looking at me like, is this guy an infiltrator, this white dude here? Yeah. And Fiorella's had to tell them that she'll speak Spanish or whatever. And like, no. Or, out there and they're like, okay. But I mean, hearing people out there talk about like, oh, we're going to use this as a way to impeach Donald Trump, right? And what's their next thought process? Get the Democrats back in. They're the lesser of two evils. I hate that. The Party of Freedom and Peace, their guy who was speaking, he was speaking against the duopoly, it's against the empire, speaking for Palestine. It was so great. But then he came in with and what we need to do is we need to move to socialism. We need to get rid of capitalism. Now, I know some people might think that that's the positive way and stuff like that, but that's also very divisive. And, you know, I've always called for things in a mixed economy and stuff. But if you use it to push a socialist agenda, you're still even being more divisive, even further divisive, even if you might be right. Fam, I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but, you know, you're muted.
Oh, muted.
Sorry, I disagree with it. It's divisive now because of the current education and the current knowledge of people. So it doesn't really get you anywhere with most people. You know, because everybody's so just like at each other's throats. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It's not Nazism. You shouldn't be like, you know, looked on in that way. I
agree that. I agree that. Yeah.
Oh, I really want to see Matt, like you say you have evidence of the agent provocateurs. I really want to see if some of these images or whatever that you have, because if it's like what I've seen before, like the bricks and just random, very, very obvious shit that happens at these protests that show like, oh yeah, this is obviously not a regular protester.
Yeah. Okay. So this one is probably overly obvious. Some of the others, I'm still going through some of our footage to get. I've done a few of these. We're following up on these investigations, but this one just to show you guys. And this one was called out. So we saw this guy. I'm going to put him up here in a second, but we saw him. He's just very strange. He's wearing this communism symbol flag behind him. He's holding it out. He's wearing a Palestine garb on top of his head. His head is completely covered, and then to top it all off, he's wearing a sweatshirt that says something like property of Allah or something. And it's just like all these different elements. But that's not, it's not just. Okay, here it is. Here we go.
We are, bro. We all are. We all are, bro. We all are. We're talking shit, but you need to tone the fuck down, bro. For real. For real.
I'm going to pause it real quick so you guys know what didn't get on tape was him going up into and this was so bizarre because anybody that approached the police would get thrown down or away. They would get like, get the hell out. He got to go up to them and they weren't doing anything. It was very bizarre. He's going up there with his cape, with his, you know, and going into there and they weren't doing anything. It was very bizarre. So that's when I saw him, came up and filmed him. So we'll play a little more.
Who's the woman?
This one. So she's trying to talk him down and say, stop doing this.
She's an organizer, maybe.
Yeah, she's an organizer. She's saying, don't do this. Is not what the organizing is about. But listen to him. He's going to start yelling weird stuff like Democrat, which is very strange. Because the whole thing's a big convoluted mess. The MK Ultra might not have worked well on him. It might have fried his brain. But let's listen to what happened here. The whole crowd's onto it.
Because you're agitating right now like a motherfucker. Bro. We're really protesting on here, bro. Yes, we are, bro.
Standing here saying nothing.
It's what you call a classic infiltrator right here. 100%. Look at this.
Is that you?
Look at this. Look at. Trying to
That's not what we're representing right now,
I love how he's also trying to conflate the Free Palestine with communism. Oh, you got all the ones to scare everyone, right? It's infiltration right there. It's not real. You're trying to put all these.
Stop being lame. Just go.
Yeah.
Stop being fucking lame, bro.
Yeah. So again, the part that wasn't on was that he was up in the cops' faces and they weren't. It was so bizarre. If he was just doing this, maybe people would have ignored him. But it was so bizarre that he could get away with that and nobody else could. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
It was a very obvious one. But we have some others as well. I'm still going through the footage of.
I'm looking at a tweet from Gavin Newsom, and it says the president of the United States has just called for the arrest of the sitting governor. So they're like, once again, see, this is another thing, fam. I'm very nervous that they're trying to do. They're trying to swing you back to go support the Democrats. This is the way they do these things too, as well. So it makes these situations. It's like, oh my God, like what do they want? What are they trying to accomplish? I mean, I don't think this thing is an organic situation at all. I think this is from the get-go. This is meant to happen. And we're seeing what is meant to happen.
I disagree with that. I think people are actually afraid and upset and are actually protesting genuinely. And what's happening is
I agree there, fam. But they started this. They're like, let's go do this over there, and we'll fucking piss people off. You know what I'm saying?
Who's they? Who are you talking about?
The globalists, the social engineers. They're like,
Who are the globalists?
These social engineers, whoever they are, whoever sit at the top of those, whoever's controlling everything. You know what I'm saying? They made Donald Trump go send ICE into California to get this started.
I mean, but Donald Trump's not in charge.
That's what I mean.
Intelligence apparatus is in charge. Yeah, so let's be like proper, because according to the right, the globalists are every left wing and Soros. And by the way, that's what I wanted to mention. Soros made these protests is a lazy analysis. It's reductionist. It's like you're completely leaving out the reality of people's lives on the ground, why they're doing what they're doing. And then you're leaving out the different things that we've pointed out. The agent provocateurs, the politicians like Gavin Newsom taking advantage of this to turn people back into the Democratic Party. Of course, that's going to happen. And then, of course, the Palantir and the intelligence apparatus trying to usher in this technocratic age. You're leaving all of that out when you just say Soros did this. Like, it's not as simple as just Soros did it. And it's not only Soros. And the right has a tendency to just name everything Soros. And a lot of these protests start out very genuinely. It's just that they get captured and infiltrated constantly by so many different interests and facets. And it's very obvious when you're on the ground and when you're watching it and you see the majority of these people doing absolutely nothing wrong. And then you see some moron trying to start something with the police that's not effective in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. And it's very obvious that that's what they're there to do. So the blame goes back on these protesters. And yeah, I mean, Jayme, I think we do need to do an episode on Andor, because that is what happened, right? But we can talk about that later.
What?
Okay.
What'd you guys do with your stupid Star Wars stuff, Andor?
We'll get back to the Andor in
Matt,
a second.
tell them to stop that crap. They're laughing. Both of them.
I found a screenshot. I did get some other infiltrators. This one's a little harder to tell, but you guys have to look out for this type. This is the type of stuff. These guys came out of nowhere. They had rocks or something very like some hard. They weren't bricks, but they were small enough in their hand, and they were definitely hard. So I'm thinking rocks. And they came out of nowhere, and right over that balcony, you guys saw from the earlier clip where the police were down, the SWAT team was down on the level. They were looking for reasons to shoot into the crowd. So all they need is somebody to chuck something at them. These guys come out of nowhere. They got the mask. They unload their pockets. They go boom, boom, and then they dart away. And I followed them and did a loop around and got some snapshots of them. So these are also the people you gotta look out for right here. They're not. This isn't part of the protest at all. And the way they were moving, and it was just very snaky. And again, full cover over their faces. So I just wanted to point that out. Does that check out to you, Craig? These guys. Yeah.
Go ahead. But
it's hard because it's after the fact. I have to follow them afterwards, but I didn't get the thing on camera, but I'm telling you guys, they threw these rocks. They slipped in, they slipped out. But I followed them over here to the corner. So this is what we have to look out for. These are definitely plants. They're definitely feds.
Gotta play it.
Yeah, no, there's nothing to play. I just got screen grabs.
Oh,
of them.
So you didn't get any play. You didn't get any.
I followed them down the street and circled around and got some shots of them, just so people understand there's a certain look. And then January 6th, it's all the same stuff. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter who's in the street. There's going to be infiltration. There's going to be feds set up to what is it? We have to. What was the line, Craig? We have to go into the Capitol.
Yeah, we got to go into the Capitol.
Yeah.
That dude was saying, he goes, I'm agitated. He was trying. Yeah, I mean, that dude was definitely, and that's the whole, this is why I never liked Antifa, because Antifa really is a tactic. And it's a tactic where everybody's dressed in black and they're hiding their identity, and their reasons might be right. But that allows for feds to get in there and completely mess up your message and smear your message. And that's a very important thing.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to talk to any PSL or Party of Freedom and Peace? Any of those people who are out there talking?
No, but we're going to be doing those conversations today. I hope that things are dying down more. It was so much chaos. We're lucky to get the conversations that we did, but yes, I would like to try and engage with them today, see what's going on there. And like you were saying, Craig, about the messages being so convoluted and divided because they can't seem to get organized to get on the same page about what are the actual demands. Like what is the messaging here? And again, there's also going to be people that act out of their own and that aren't. We're not saying everybody that does something wild and crazy has to be a Fed. We're not saying that. Some people are inspired by that action. They see somebody throwing, like, oh, I want to do it. So you get.
That's what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
That's the idea. So you inspire other people who weren't there to do that. Then you got more people doing it.
The social engineers know that you can instigate and set these people off, and it's tribe behavior. He's throwing a brick. There's a brick right there. I'm throwing a brick at these Nazis. It's mob mentality. Go ahead, Fee.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree. And I was just going to say, like, before your guest gets here, I got to head out soon. But I think that the fingerprint or the footprints of everything that's happening now, it's so relevant now because of everything that happened before. And so I think, Matt, when you're out there, you know what to look for, what to watch for, because there's just so much of the same tactics that are being used. And I think we have to be very critical of how we talk about these things, and not so like it's not black or white. A lot of people are commenting, well, some people are commenting, right, like how George Floyd destroyed towns and cities. And yeah, we can talk about the destruction and all of that. But was it really all just people doing that, right? Was it not instigated? What other mechanisms were there? And for me, when I was on the ground, I saw one perspective, and then looking at it from being outside and having been on the ground, you see like the different mechanisms at work, especially with the intelligence apparatus. So I think it's getting a full picture, and also being outside of it right now is kind of it's interesting to see it. And I'm glad to be able to see Matt, like you, on the ground, because it just takes me back there. But at the same time, it's like things have progressed in a very, very terrible way so quickly that I think now anything could be much worse. So
we saw a protest and it was like a couple days of just the news, especially Fox News and Newsmax and OAN, just showing the looting and the burning and the stealing. And it was off Franklin Boulevard, and some people had broken off from the protest. And you can see there was a car following around just from the side streets to go in there, and they hit a CVS. They threw a bike through it and whatnot. Some people who were part of the organizers went and blocked people from going in there. They're like, you're not going in. They're like, what are you talking about? We're going in there. And they're like, you're not going in. And those people who were part of the organizers wouldn't let those people go in. They're like, no, you're not going to do this in our name. This is not what we want to do. This sends the wrong message. This is going to manufacture consent for the police to shoot us with rubber bullets. You're not going in there. And they stopped the looters from getting in there. And you can see it was just people taking advantage of the protest that wanted to go loot. They weren't there for the protest, but they got lumped with the mentality of the protest.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, like, when people show up in good nature to participate in a protest, that they believe in the messaging and they're there for in good faith, they are susceptible sometimes to being told what to do. This is the key part. This is how you get crowds to do stuff. And we mentioned the January 6th. It's very easy to just start repeating messages to people that they weren't initially thinking they were going to be doing. Like when they said, when Ray Epps tells everyone at January 6th, go into the Capitol, the messaging starts to change. Oh, this is what we're doing. So every protest starts out with a very calm, like, everybody's gathering. So this is what happened yesterday. We gathered at City Hall, and they're telling, here's what we're going to do. We're going to march down to the detention center 101. That's what so there's messaging. Here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're not going to do. And so it's easy that you're in a mindset already of, tell me my next instruction, right? We're all in this together, right? This is how you get groupthink. You say, we're going to tell you your next order later. Problem is, the person that told you on that bullhorn at the beginning of the protest said, we're going to be marching down from City Hall. We're going to end up at detention center at 101 at Alameda. That next they're not going to be on the bullhorn next. It's going to be someone else coming up to you saying, now we're doing this to the cop. Now we're going to do this. Now we're going to burn these cars. Now we're going to do. And so there's a messaging, a manipulation of what's the next thing we're doing. I'm part of the group. I'm part of the team. And so, not to excuse bad behavior, but it's to say this is how that works. And so people need to just be aware that just because somebody told you at the starting point, here's what we're doing, you have to be able to get out of it and say, okay, this is where I draw the line. I'm not doing this. This doesn't seem right. This seems like it's been captured a little bit. This isn't how it started. So just we have to start.
Matt,
being able to
I got to
do that.
say that. And me and Fiorella would say, it's like, we already have enough problem trying to keep the emotional people within our group, not mentioning any names, Jeremy White, keeping them in fucking tact so they don't get out of line, let alone deal with agent provocateurs joining this fucking group. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get over here, dude. What are you doing? You don't fucking do that. Get over here and calm down and remain peaceful.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Fam,
anything else?
No, I mean, there's just so much to talk about this thing. I could talk about it forever.
Yeah.
There's so much for so many angles to this thing, so much that goes into it, so much manipulation. I mean, it's all very psychological, really. And I think we're all being played, obviously. The immigration issue. And when we say PSYOP, I just want to reiterate, it doesn't mean that these aren't really real issues to people. It doesn't mean that people aren't affected by this. You know, if Trump is taking people without due process, his administration, then that is obviously a huge problem, undocumented or not. It's absolutely horrible. And what we've been seeing, obviously, these international prisons that people are being sent to, and people just being grabbed just or stopped for looking, Hispanic. Basically, these things happening not just in California, but we're from Florida too. We've all lived in California. Pasta and I are originally from Florida, and that the Latino population in these places is intense and immense, and there's different viewpoints there, even within it, right? I mean, there's a lot of Trump supporting Latinos, and people who have been here for generations, and they make, the immigration issue becomes a very funneled issue where you have to take a side and it's this one thing or the other. But I think what is most tragic to me is how it's being weaponized against people, and how it's actually about something else. I think that's what is most tragic, that they're taking people's emotions and they're weaponizing them and their fears, and they're weaponizing them to really screw not just the immigrants, but everybody, every single American that's there. So
they use the excuse for the immigrants, and you got people like Laura Luma cheering it on. This is to help immigration, but they're putting you on the grid. They're tracking and tracing you. They're looking at your emails. Didn't Edward Snowden already tell us this and stuff, and now we're still falling for it? But this is the way, Captain Austin Fitz said, the way you're going to get the Republicans, the pro-right, the populist right, the way you get them on the grid, track and trace systems, is use immigration, use the voting, use the voting issue. They're voting in your place. That's just kind of like, all right, that's over the line now. You know what I'm saying? Bad enough you're coming and taking our jobs. I want to pick strawberries at $6 an hour. Bad enough you're doing that. Now you're going to fucking vote for us? No. And it's just not true. It's just not true. I mean, as election integrity activists, not just experts who've been in the field going to all these rallies. And remember, and we would get shit. And I remember that we were in a Trump rally. It was a Save the Children rally. And I remember walking past somebody, and I remember two people talking, that's Fiorella Isabel over there. She's damn well a commie. I mean, holy cow. Like, what is she doing here? She's a social justice. I think they called you a social justice warrior. And they kind of like, but that's the thing we would do. We would go to both rallies and we would talk to both people. We didn't care. You know what I'm saying? They knew who we were. When we went to when I went to a rally in, I can't remember what park it was in downtown LA, some dudes from the left were screaming at me. They were there to protest against their rally. And they're like, oh, there you are, Pasta. The Convo couch has been the front line for the Red-Brown Alliance. I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? We're talking to everybody here. And the people at the protest, once again, they knew who we were. And they're like, well, this is the Convo couch. One dude said, we don't agree with them on most things, but they're here peacefully to cover this, and they're doing this the right way. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've been inside these rallies. We understand what's going on. We see the operation for what it is. And, when we talk about the book Operation George Floyd by Miriam Hanen, about this being a cover revolution where they can use this, I can't confirm. I haven't read the whole book yet and what's going on, but I can tell you this much from going down south and being part of the Latin American community. All these operations they've been running for years, the CIA. These psychological operations, And we've said this before. What the empire does abroad, they'll eventually, the chickens will come home to roost, and they'll do it to us here. And that's what we're seeing in real fucking time.
That's what's starting.
Mic drop.
Matt.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
Sorry.
No.
Waiting for our guest.
I think it's just important to understand that on top of this thing we see over and over every single time, it's the same blueprint. Something more diabolical is happening this time that we've never seen. And we will talk about this Palantir situation where they're putting everybody on one database. I don't know if people fully understand what that's going to entail. It's 1,000 times worse than what we saw in Canada with the trucker convoy, where they're able to shut off bank accounts. It's 1,000 times worse than that. We're not just talking about bank accounts being deactivated, which is bad enough. We're talking about access to our social media passwords. That's what we're talking about. This is where you can target anybody, people like us with wanting to have conversations and do independent media, do investigative journalism. How are we even going to stream or go on Twitter and report anything if we can't even get into our accounts? So bank accounts bad enough. So we have to understand what we're up against. We've never seen anything like this before. And the right has been tricked. They think this is protecting us from ourselves. It's the same playbook since the Patriot Act. It's over and over. The COVID stuff, it's the same thing over and over. But it's never been this bad. And I'm not trying to do some fear campaign and get everybody afraid. I'm just saying this is the level of insanity we're up against. It's Minority Report times 1,000. Times 1,000 it's not. You can't really put a metric on it, but understand it's what we can say is we've never dealt with anything like this before. So we're going to have to figure this out together and maneuver through this brave new world we're in, because I don't think we have anybody else to tell us what's coming. We have to figure this out on our own. We're guinea pigs here.
Jayme.
Yeah. It's massive surveillance, and no doubt. And this has this element of Portland. We went up to Portland. We were there. We saw what happened. And I was like, why the hell did Donald Trump really do this? This is like such instigation. He sent in the feds. It was a federal courthouse that was being attacked and spray painted and vandalized from the outside, nothing inside. And it was in front of a homeless encampment in a poor area in Portland. And he sent people in. He sent the feds in. We were in the Bernie Sanders van covering it when they broke the windows and everything. It was a crazy time for us, but it was like, why the hell is he doing this? And then the tactics he was using, once again, just grabbing people off the streets, the Antifa-like people, right? Because we saw them. There was a bunch of them like there at the protest, like all lined up and ready. And I was like, what the hell is going on over here? Our guest will be here any minute. And we were like, what's going on? But the tactics now of the state coming in and doing stuff without giving you your rights, taking away your rights. They weren't reading anybody their rights. They were just grabbing people off the streets, throwing them in the vans and questioning them. What they would do in Portland is, so all the agitators and the protesters were outside, right? Mostly the protesters, Black Lives Matter showed up. We would march around the blocks. All of a sudden, the feds would come out. Now, we saw jackets. We were walking around the building one part, and I think I saw a jacket where somebody it was a state marshal's jacket. So he was grabbing people like state marshals, federal marshals, not state marshals, federal marshals, Department of Homeland Security, and he was sending them to Portland to guard this federal courthouse. They would be inside. The people would be outside. I remember somebody set a tree on fire, and even Johnny said to them, "Why are you doing that? Like, burn a garbage can. Don't burn a fucking tree." Like, once again, this was like, don't tell people how to protest. It's like, we are going to tell you how to protest. And that's a big argument. I get it. So I'm getting text from. So anyways, they would come out, the feds, like Wolvie Berserk style with headgear on, lasers. They would hit smoke bombs, and they would come out and they would grab people from the protest and bring them in, people they wanted to question. They wouldn't read them their rights. They wouldn't, you have the right to remain silent. They would just grab them and bring them in the building. It was crazy. It was nuts.
That is crazy.
So
I remember,
all your rights.
Yeah, and they could shoot you. They had guns pointed to our heads. I mean,
we were scared.
It's a whole situation where, and after that, things have only get more crazy. in other countries in terms of the military or the possibility of war. But when it's your own government doing it to you, that's on another level. I mean, I've been to the Middle East, right? I've been to war zones, and never have I felt so much danger or so much kind of like a weirdness as when you see one of the feds is pointing a gun at you when you're just reporting. Like, it's just it's jarring, because even in Russia, where there's no freedom or liberty, uh these cops don't have anything on them. They're barely armed whatsoever. But and even in Iran or in these other places, they have nowhere near the attire that our police have. But in Tel Aviv, they do. In the occupied Palestinian territories, they look exactly like that. So I think people need to understand that what Pasta said about the chickens coming home to roost, everything that's happening to the Palestinians, the Gazans, all of that will eventually be done to somebody else, eventually in the Western world. I think that's where people need to see where we're going. The prison is maybe prettier, but it's still a prison. And we have to find ways to combat it, to speak against it, because right now people aren't paying attention to the surveillance stuff, really, not at the level they're paying attention to the geopolitics or other stuff. So but anyway, guys, I gotta get going. I'll let you introduce your next guest, and make sure to ask the tough questions.
All right.
I'm not here.
We were the first to interview him back in the days
Okay.
at an AOC event when this man was out there looking to run for sheriff of Los Angeles County. And I can tell you this much about Sheriff Alex Villanueva. You might not agree with a lot of things he does or the way he handled a lot of the protests during George Floyd. People on the right were very upset with him with some of the things he was doing when it came to how you deal with ICE in the federal prisons. We will talk about that, the state prisons, I should say. But at the end of the day, I've knocked on doors with this guy. I walked, and it was in Altadena where things were burnt down. But, you want to talk about a man who doesn't hide, who will face the fire, who will come ask questions. And it was unlike the sheriff we had before them. The sheriff we had before Sheriff Alex Villanueva, you couldn't get a meeting with this guy. If he returned an email, you might be lucky. Ladies and gentlemen, he was the sheriff in LA County during the George Floyd protest or riots, depending on what you want to say and how you want to say it. He is here with us today, Sheriff Alex Villanueva.
Hi. How y'all doing?
Great.
We're doing good. Sheriff, this is my colleague and one of my partners, Matt Weinglass. Matt Weinglass, this is Sheriff Alex Villanueva.
Great to meet you. And having this conversation today, of all days, since this weekend is pretty hectic. You probably know a little bit about that in LA. We've been on the ground here all weekend, but it's important to have these conversations. So I'm glad to be here.
No, definitely.
Well, you are the ex-sheriff of LA County. I got to reunite with you and see you at the Johnny Wagner protest, and I like to say you were looking good. You're looking healthy. You were very wound up. I mean, I think that, and I can remember being in Democratic Party groups, having conversations about you and how people were split, yelling back and forth. And there were I'm one of those brass tacks guys. Brass tacks, Sheriff Villanueva is doing X, Y, and Z. Therefore, I'm standing with him. Yeah, but he's not treating the protest fairly at the protest, and they're hitting him with rubber bullets. We can discuss that stuff. We can talk about those things. But I want to ask you a question right off the bat, because now that you're not doing this anymore, but you're appearing on a lot of stations. I like I said, I know that you probably are pulling your hair out of your head dealing with the Democrats in Los Angeles and California in general, but I hope you didn't go to the right side. I hope you did what we did. Get out of the two-party duopoly altogether and don't mess with either one of these guys because they're crazy. But I want your opinion right now. My first question to you, Sheriff, and thank you again for doing this interview with us. Does Donald Trump have the right to do what he's doing by sending in National Guard, feds to California, especially when you hear Gavin Newsom openly saying, we didn't ask for your help. We don't want you here. We don't want to have this argument that the Fed supersedes the state. Get out of here. And really, at the end of the day, Sheriff Villanueva, by him doing the things he's doing, Donald Trump, this doesn't say de-escalation. It says escalation to me. So unpack it and let me know your thoughts. Does he have the right to do what he's doing, Sheriff?
Well, this has devolved into basically the proverbial dick measuring contest. And the little guy is going to lose. I guarantee you that. Why? Because of supremacy clause in the Constitution. The president has the authority to enforce federal law. And Newsom and the entire Democratic establishment in the state of California has built up this fake bubble of sanctuary policies as if somehow it invalidated federal law. It never did. And under the Biden administration, there was no effort to enforce the law. There was under Obama, curiously, and there was no hue and cry when he was a deporter in chief. Only when Trump decided, well, let's start reinforcing immigration laws again, then it became, oh my God, this, oh my God, that. Well, Newsom is going to lose big time on this.
But my question is to you. I mean, this and the second part of the question. Obviously, you're saying federal supersedes state, right? It's in the Constitution. We know that. But he's not de-escalating anything by doing this, right? If anything, this says escalation. Yes or no?
No, actually, escalation is people throwing bricks at radio cars. Escalation is burning Waymos in the middle of the street. Escalation is pelting the federal ICE detention center, tagging the facilities, and pelting all the officers lined up trying to protect the egress and ingress of vehicles that were doing enforcement activities.
We'll get to that part of the conversation. There's a big part of that conversation, and nobody has the insight that you have. And this is an area where we disagreed. We were on a live chat, and we kind of talked back and forth about who has the right to be a journalist, right? The Constitution says I can bring out a camera whenever I want. You can't make me go sign up with your police department to get a certain press badge. I don't need to do that. It might help your situation out, but I can just do it. The Constitution allows me to do that too. So we'll have that discussion. And I get it. And I believe a lot of those people who are doing those things, Sheriff Villanueva, and I love your opinion. When you see the guy throwing bricks at the cars and stuff, I believe those are federal provocateurs. We saw them in January 6th, the federal provocateurs, because at the end of the day, the state gets more power, more spying power, more security power. We understand that. So I can understand that. But Sheriff, you got to agree with me that Governor Newsom, and I'm not a fan of Governor Newsom at all, but he didn't ask Donald Trump to come do this. Donald Trump is doing this because he knows that if he wants to get to the 2,000 arrests a day so he can beat the numbers of Barack Obama, the deporter-in-chief, and he can beat the numbers of Biden, he's got to get to 2,000 a day. And correct me if I'm wrong. You didn't work with ICE when it came to the prison over there. In other words, a lot of people say that Donald Trump didn't get his quotas in deporting people is because Sheriff Alex Villanueva was not playing ball with ICE in Los Angeles. Please go ahead.
Well, I'll tell you this. What we did is we separated ICE enforcement from local law enforcement. Both things need to happen. They just cannot work in conjunction. Because it's hard as a local law enforcement to convince someone to come in and report being a victim of a crime while you're going to deport them at the same time. It's just not going to work. This is just a state common sense public safety issue. Separate the two. However, both have a job to do. We have to ensure that they both do their job unimpeded physically by protesters. And this is the difference. And this is where it falls apart. So under my administration, we barred ICE from the jails. However, we definitely made sure that if they had a criminal search warrant, that they'd go and get their body. In fact, they weren't doing that in the past. For some reason, they decided that administrative detainers were sufficient. Well, I got sued and we lost bigly, to borrow a Trump phrase. We lost that because it's not a criminal warrant based on probable cause. So now Bill Dissecting, the new assistant U.S. attorney, has decided to actually get criminal warrants for detainees in the county jail because they violated term. They were deported and they re-entered. Now that's a felony. They got their criminal warrant. Now they're getting bodies out of the LA County Jail. In spite of whatever Sheriff Luna and the local crowd is protesting, that's actually the way it's supposed to happen.
Really quickly, Matt, I'm going to just one last question. I'm going to then give you some time for some questions too. Sheriff, did you find any proof? All right. So now you just said, okay. And listen, I get it. Our last person that was on, our other partner, Fiorella, who you met, we met you guys, believe it or not, we all met at a AOC before we found out who she was, an AOC event, and you were there. You were kind of campaigning towards the progressives going, hey, man, get me in here. We got to get, I think it was McDonald was the I think LA had a Republican like sheriff for like 90 years or something ridiculous before you got in there. But you were there and you're like, get me in here, and that's where we met. And Fiorella, you know, she had talked about it. We would have enough time. Now, this is something, and I don't know the questions I want to ask. Number one, did you talk to any of the organizers of BLM during the George Floyd riots? Because they promoted no violence, no riots, no whatsoever. And number two is, did you ever find any evidence, Sheriff, of these people who are escalating to be provocateurs of the federal kind of like group or whatnot? I mean, for me, it was just odd that there were bricks laid out nicely in New York for the protesters to just grab and start throwing. So two-part question. Go ahead.
Well, we spoke to a Black Lives Matter organizer prior to the George Floyd incident. We spoke with the ACLU. I met with the ACLU, and they were talking about conditions of confinement. And it turns out that the LA Board of Supervisors was selling the undocumented inmate database to ICE for $122 million, while they were saying on the outside, hey, we're the pals of immigrants. On the other side, they were actually stabbing them in the back and selling their data to ICE, which I thought was extremely hypocritical. So we stopped that. We said, no, let ICE get their search warrants or their criminal warrants and handle it. But when it came to the riots in 2020, Black Lives Matter were actively, unfortunately, participating in exhorting people to come to the streets. When they protested peacefully in front of the Hall of Justice, we had 25,000 of them in front of the Hall of Justice. They did it peacefully. It was organized. We protected them. We made sure that the streets, they had no access from vehicles that could ram them or anything. It worked. But then when they showed up at 10 o'clock at night wearing NFL football gear and shields and black masks, all of a sudden that's a different game. Got to separate the two. There's people that want to protest peacefully. God bless them. We want to defend them. But the people that showed up at these ICE protests, they were there to defeat ICE's actions.
Did you find any of those guys to be part of federal agents or any other group or provocateurs and stuff? Because you're saying now they're showing up with NFL gear, hockey mask, and shoulder pads. And I remember we were talking about that. You're like, Pasta, look at this. This is not gear of protesters. This is gear of agitators to make these protesters look bad. Did you ever find anybody as a federal agent or something like they found in January 6th that shouldn't have been there, that were trying to ruin the message of Black Lives Matter?
Actually, no, it was the group Antifa. That crowd were basically trying to leverage the presence of the protests in BLM and undercover the protests. They went in and did all the damage. And then you had the local opportunists. But when we had in Lenox Station's area, we arrested 55 people. 54 of the 55 were out of state. That kind of gives you an idea. This is not your local homegrown, hey, let's protest something that's happened locally. No, this was organized and it was national.
Yeah. Matt, go ahead. You take some time. I mean,
Sure.
Thank you, Sheriff Villanueva. And by the way, when you're saying they're coming from out of state, that's federal. For me, I believe that's federal agitation from CIA, FBI. I know you have no grounds to believe that, but I believe there's a bigger purpose to these protests sometimes, because I think it was really great that you told the story about the way you guys were protecting some of the people from BLM and what was going on. You had those conversations, all these people there peacefully, because those are the people I know, right? Medina Abdullah, who was the vice president candidate with Cornell West, she was out there. She's a professor. She was leading some of the protests. She would say, no cause violence. Don't wreck anything. We're here to make a message. We're going to do it peacefully. Let's go. And I think that's overshadowed by some of these provocateurs. Go ahead, Matt. I'm so sorry.
No. There's a lot going on here. I appreciate the time, Sheriff, speaking with you today. I've been on the ground covering the protests / riots, depending on where people are coming from, what they want to call it. But it's certainly, LA is certainly in turmoil right now. We're seeing it on the ground. And obviously we think about Black Lives Matter as a reference point to how protesters are able to control their messaging versus letting it get out of control. You did mention these different stages of Black Lives Matter where there was control at one point, and then you're saying that fast forward, you have a different type of people showing up. And just to clarify, you had said, or just to reiterate that you had said that you looking into it, you're blaming this on Antifa, you're blaming it on some outsiders that weren't part of the movement. but you didn't see any sign of any actual operation that would be like a psychological op, any sort of Fed involvement. Do you believe that happened in January 6th? I'm getting the sense that you did, and I would follow up with that. If you believe it's possible for feds to rile up a crowd and send a message that these people are unstable and they're not to be trusted, therefore, by needing more security, needing to call in the National Guard, needing to do things to counter the instability of, I guess you could say, labeling people insurrectionists. If you think that is possible to do at January 6th, why wouldn't it be possible to do it in another location? And it's hard for me to understand that you didn't see any of that when you looked into it. And then I would say, follow that up with, do you think it's possible they could be doing it right now? Because we are certainly seeing it on the ground right now. Absolutely infiltration going on, not from Antifa, not from just outsiders, but from actual Fed operation that we're calling a PSYOP. Do you see any of that going on here versus what you would see it on a January 6th assessment?
Well, we have the opportunity to compare 2020 with 2025. When I was in charge in 2020, I called in the National Guard. I went through the California Office of Emergency Services. I had 11 riots going on throughout different areas of the county. That's spread out over 4,000 square miles. And I had a lot of resources within the department, within mutual aid at the county level. But now when it came to when the riots got that much bigger and there was that many more of them, we called the National Guard in, they came in, but I had control of the National Guard and all the local law enforcement. Fast forward to 2025, now you have a lot smaller scale riot going on here in just 3 locations, but local law enforcement sat on their hands. Okay, and that's why the difference is that local law enforcement has been compromised by Democratic Party leadership, the mayor of LA, Board of Supervisors, and the governor of the state telling local law enforcement to stand down because they don't want to be perceived to be somehow aiding ICE when they come under attack. That's the difference here in the two. And so my perspective is that when I had control over the whole thing, I could account for that. Now that local law enforcement leadership is compromised, now it's going to be a tough sell to say, well, is it because of PSYOPs? Is it because of a game of chess with Trump and trying to leverage this to, and you could get lost in that rabbit hole. I just know from my experience that when local leadership fails, there's a void that's going to be filled, and the results are not going to be welcomed by anybody.
Right. And no, look, I understand. Look, I'm not even going to argue the fact that it's
Okay.
clearly a federal. It's a right federally. You can take over whatever a governor wants. You can bypass that. We've actually seen that before. A lot of people on the left don't understand that we do have a history of that. We did it. We saw it back in '65, right? With I guess Johnson at the time was in complete. It was very familiar of now the Trump butting heads with Newsom, very similar to the March on Selma, where you needed MLK needed that protection. So you said, no, we're going to override the state and we're going to bring in the National Guard for protection. So I have no problem.
What's up?
Yeah, I'm running short on another deadline right now, so I'm going to have to end this conversation. I'd like to continue it because I think it's very productive. We can hash this out, but I'll have to get you next time. All right,
Sheriff, I know you got to get out of here, but take the question. I want to know what you did when you have to separate provocateurs from actual protest and how you approach that next time and what they could do this time, because we see some unjust, we think, coming from the police department where they lump everybody together, and you know that's not fair. You knew there were actual journalists out there and agitators who pretended to be journalists. Have a great time, Sheriff. We'll talk again soon. Please, let's keep the conversation going. Please give my love to your wife, and you have an amazing evening.
Well, will too. You too, Craig and Matt. All right.
You got it. Later, Sheriff. We didn't have enough time. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Matt. He was going like this, and I know his wife was calling for another interview. And
it's, we planted some seeds. You got a lot of stuff out there. I was trying another angle. It's good, man. Like you find the things to agree on, and then you say, now let's go into something that's a little more important here that we know he's going to push back on. But that was good. I think that was a good start. So I'm glad we get to do a part 2. That was kind of a setting the table. So in the next one will be
we didn't get to the part where I know Fee would want to get to the part like, why did I get arrested?
Yeah.
Say like I have a press badge on. They know we're press. Why did I get arrested?
Yeah.
Like what? And I wanted him to talk about that too, as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Maybe we can. I told him to maybe come on my show Wednesday. I'll see if he's available Thursday. Maybe he can come on the Homeless Leftist Thursday. Jayme,
why don't we
just
bring him on?
Why
don't we continue on THL on Thursday? Why don't we?
Let's see if we can do. I'll see if he's available because we have hours to get him in. We'll get him in wherever. And you know, he's got to get to. Look, I've always thought that, and there's this whole thing. There's this gang, that what they call a gang of, like an actual gang inside the sheriff's department that's been operating for years. Supposedly, there's accusations of that. They were blaming Alex Villanueva for that. I'm like, he just got in. Like, how could you blame him for a gang that's been existed? Your accusations that there's a gang existing for so long. Well, it's how he's handling it. You know what I'm saying? These are questions I like to ask Sheriff. Like, okay, there's a lot of bad seeds in the sheriff department before you got there. How did you handle it moving forward? And how should we handle that moving forward when you got a guy who's a little bit too jumpy with the trigger, even though they're rubber bullets, he's still a little bit too jumpy. How do we handle that? So, I mean, there is criticisms and questions that we'll get him to face next time. It's just that we ran out of time this time. Hopefully, we only got him for 25 minutes. We'll get him next time. We'll see if we can get him more. There's police gangs are real.
Yeah.
But how does a sheriff who's coming in handle that from what's been going on in the past? And that's the thing that Sheriff Alex Villanueva had to handle. So you had all these progressives that were hating him because they just inherently hate cops. Let's be honest. There's a lot of leftists that inherently hate cops. They work for the ruling class. They should know that. And you can see them in the streets going, shame on you, shame on you, shame on you. You see him out there saying that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it is a quagmire of sorts. I don't necessarily like police because of my libertarian views, because I know who they're there to serve. They're there to serve the 1% and the security state at the end of the day. So there's a quagmire there. However, Sheriff Villanueva always impressed me the way he'll face the fire and have conversations with people. He won't run and hide. Look at him. He just came on the show today. He will not run and hide. No. So I definitely want to get him back, and we'll have more questions. But this story is just beginning because, like I say, I have a feeling this can really pop off and go really crazy, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we're on this thing each day. We want to stay in front of it, not behind it. So that's why we got to do. If he wasn't going to leave first, I was going to probably be the one. Somebody was going to have to cut out because I got about 5 more minutes tops, and then I got to get back out in the field with the team out there. So do you need me for anything else right now, or do we have anything?
No, but I can just tell you this much is that Nick Sorter is sitting there and feeding the divide and making it look like the crowd and the left have nothing to say, no merits, no points to stand on. They do. And that's another thing we got to get. You'll see the PSL people. You'll see the Party of Freedom and Peace. You got to ask them if they're talking to each other, see what their message, see what their demands is, because there's different groups out there. It's really sucked because the left is so fractured that you got like 4 different groups out there. They're not even communicating with each other, and their message is getting watered down. And that's the problem.
Can we end with I did one little, I was able to get one little report up on Twitter during the Waymo fire burning. I don't know if people don't know that happened. They lined up like 5 of these things, burned them. It was this big statement being made. I happen to think the whole thing was a PSYOP operation, but it is easy to call those things on your app, get them lined up and burn them. I reported right in front of that. Can we just play that, Jayme? Just my little on the ground report from yesterday during this.
All right, here in downtown LA, right at the 101. It's been closed off for the last several hours. And we're facing confrontation between the protesters, the police, the SWAT. Also, the National Guard has been called. But it's very clear that the protesters themselves have been infiltrated. Very obvious. Just like this scene behind me, these parties on fire. This was definitely done. This was planned definitely in advance. We saw the similar actions last night when we were down in Paramount and Compton. Similar activities where the protesters themselves being infiltrated. They want an escalation. They want the divide. And more than anything, what we're going towards is the age of technocracy, the bringing in of Palantir. That is the ultimate goal here. We can definitely see it taking advantage of people that are out here for a good cause and using that cause against them. We see this time and time again. This is an infiltration. Actually, we'll see even more than infiltration. This was definitely the cause by the powers that be. We're talking FBI, CIA, infiltration from the top down. So you got to basically fight back from the bottom up. So hopefully things will get to crazy beyond right here, but this is definitely going to go into the night. The protesters we talked to are definitely here for the long haul, so we'll see how far into the night this actually goes. But there you have it.
Matt, we got to get you a boom mic, and we got to get you a handheld.
No. I have a clip on. It was attached to something that fell to my bottom of my leg. It was still on, but I need to get it closer. But it does work well if it's in the right place. But things are crazy out there, and like I said in the tape, things are going through the night. They did go through the night last night. I expect them to go through the night tonight as well. But I'm going to get back out there, and yes, we're going to try to get some sharper footage whenever I can in between things. Yeah. But we're multitasking the best we can, but trying to stay in front of it. That's what we try to do here.
Get out there, Matt. I'm going to handle some of the questions in the thread, and we'll get you out of here. Matt Weinglass, homeless left. He's in the streets, boots on the ground, covering the protests. We'll be getting answers. We'll be getting more as this comes along, man. And I'm glad you're out there, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trey.
Later, buddy.
See you soon. Okay.
So, Jayme, let's do 3 or 4 things from the chat, and then we'll move on. I'll answer a couple questions, but I'm not going to go too crazy, and we'll go from there. So what do you got? They were warned. Deportation coming. They, the illegals, were warned. Are they illegal? Feel the steal? Why are they here in the first place? Why are we allowed to occupy the majority of the homelands where they're coming from with military bases? Why are we allowed to send our Western corporations to extract their resources and bring it over here? According to the UN Charter, they have a right to seek refuge, a political dissents of sorts, because we are also promoting the worst kind of people in their countries. So aren't they coming from our original illegal action? Think about it, Feel the Steel. That's why they're coming in the first place. Why do you think our dollar works in all those countries down there? Because we make sure we thrusted our monetary system upon there, because we want the global dollar to be prevalent. And the whole situation is the same people who are screwing us here, the fascists, the real fascists, the corporatists, they're screwing us over there by causing the problems. They're keeping those countries destabilized as possible because they can extract the resources for pennies on the dollar. So if you're going to talk the language of the party of personal responsibility, then be responsible for your party and your country's foreign policy. It's an empire. All the immigrants not just walk to America, grow a brain. Someone paid for them to come with the purpose of destroying our country. Have a friend in France. She has thought on mass immigration. Let me tell you about that. There is this UN agenda where they are throwing fuel on the fire, and they are kind of aiding them coming here. But let me tell you something, Sherry Carter. The parameters and the possibility for this to happen is already set in place by resource extraction and monetary system. So in other words, the conditions are already created in which they can exacerbate and now move more people over here, because Operation Phoenix, if you look into that, which was a Tavistock creation, after they discovered how they control an individual through things like MK Ultra, they say, how do we control populations? Well, they found out if you took a bunch of like 100,000 North Vietnamese and just moved them to South Vietnamese and just dropped them out there, that it would cause chaos amongst the South Vietnamese. Yes, they are exacerbating the situation, but this is still about our military bases. You can't close the border first. You got to close the bases. You got to you got to go to the actual root cause. So those conditions are already in place, and yes, they are throwing fuel on the fire. Then when they get to the states like in New York, the hotels would be able to charge the state through the federal government thousands of dollars for a room in one night to put those people up. So they were exacerbating the situation and making money on the back end too. But it all comes down to the rich taking advantage of the poor. And like I said, the immigrants don't vote in states where they have to go get a driver's license, where most of them do get a driver's license because they're working out there, like in Vegas, California. They're automatically registered and get a mail-in ballot. Everybody in California has to get a mail-in ballot. It's a law. So now a guy goes and he registers to get his driver's license, or he goes to renew his driver's license. A ballot is then thrown out there. He never touches that ballot. He never fills out that ballot. But we have something called ballot harvesting, where somebody else can bring that ballot in for him, can bring in thousands of ballots. So now he's exploited for his ballot, and he's being told the population and giving fuel to the fire of the right wing that he's voting. No, he's not. He's being exploited for that ballot because of the situations they set up. Most of these immigrants that we're talking about, you don't see them in the streets because they live in the shadows. They create less crime. And I should have asked Sheriff Villanueva that, and I'll ask him next time. Statistically, they are booked at a much smaller rate percentage-wise than the American citizens. They're peaceful workers that are hiding in the shadow. They're sending their money home to take care of their family and then go back and retire one day. They go from one job to the next. They do it peacefully. The majority of these people are workers. They're not criminals, and it's ridiculous. And don't give me that thing, oh, they're a criminal for crossing the border in the first place. Nope. They're also entitled to due process. This is why I use the term neo-xenophobic, because you have now forgotten about the First, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment because it's immigrant. Terrible. Shame on you. Every person is entitled to due process. Every person. You constitutionalists on the right. Sorry, Sherry Carter. You're wrong. You got another one, Jayme? Thank you. Now in reverse, the right has had all the time to build back resentment and hate directly to California. Of course, looking in, they will think they all need to be taught a lesson. Is that what we really want? Didn't we want Donald Trump to come in there and stir the ship and set things right, not to go back and attack the people who screwed him? And I mean, this is why I said the whole Donald Trump presidency is a psyop. And you guys are buying into it. You know what I'm saying? Oh, these people were punished at the Capitol. We need to punish these people over here. Terrible, man. Terrible. And so many people are buying into this. They are pandering. The ruling class in the form of the right wing is pandering to the smallest informed voter out there possible. The emotional, reactionary conservative who thinks that it's justified and any means necessary to deport, arrest, and get rid of any immigrant out here without due process. Illegal search and seizures, right? They're going into these places and restaurants and whatnot where they have no right to do that, and you're okay with it. You're neo-xenophobic. Neo-xenophobic. Xenophobic to the nth degree. And you think that if we clear up this problem and we get rid of all the immigrants, that's the number one problem that's going to fix itself? No friggin' way. And I'm going to tell you this much. It's going to cause more problems than it's going to fix, by and large. Because who's going to go out there and pick the fruit? Who's going to wash the dishes? Who's going to clean the pools? Who's going to do the nannying? Not this generation. Controlling dissent and specifically public protest is very high priority for the state for obvious reasons. They spend massive resources on it on many levels. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. This is Jokers for you. It's definitely not something any individual can overcome by themselves. Any individual will ultimately end in failure versus the state apparatus. I ain't got nothing to say to that. Show me the lie. Show me the lie. Listen, this could be just a grab for more power, for more security power, for more spying power. I mean, I think they got enough anyways. They can pretty much look at everybody. The 6 degrees to each person. Like if you catch somebody who's doing something wrong, you can look at 6 of the people connected to them. You can connect that to everybody in the United States now. Nobody's safe. They can look at anybody at any time warrantlessly, and nobody's going to fix that stuff. Donald Trump isn't going out there to fix that stuff. He's using it to his advantage. So now when the Democrats get back in, all those lefties will feel justified when they, over misuse the laws and their powers that they give them. Too much power in the state's hands is bad. This is the argument against socialism and communism, is that you can't give the state too much power, yet they're not reforming the state's power. They're just using it for their needs and their wants, and they're going along with it. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for coming on out. This is going to be a crazy week. If you haven't subscribed to us, subscribe. If you want to follow us, please do. You can go to my @YoPasta. There's links down below. You can send us direct money to help out for independent media because we're not getting donations from Raytheon or Pfizer. And we've been demonetized for quite some time. Why? We're anti-establishment. We're a leftist that's talking against the security state. We're a leftist that's pointing out their agent provocateurs out there. We are leftists who exposed on the left the Epstein group to a lot of people who never knew anything about it. We brought it to them. So, it is what it is. But we are definitely in the penalty box. Matt had his channel taken down completely. So if you can help us down below, the links are over there. We appreciate every single bit of help. And we're going to get out there. We're going to do some fighting. We're going to do some reporting. I'm going to let you know what's what. I'm going to be on RT in about 45 minutes talking about these protests right now. For Fiorella Isabel, Matt Weinglass, our guest, Sheriff Alex Villanueva, and of course, Jayme CheeseSlice behind the scenes on the ones and twos. We love him as well. This is the TruthWire. Truth out. We'll see you back on Friday, but I'll be on Matt's show on Thursday, and WBAI Drive Time, my call-in show, Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. You can call in whenever you want. Go join us there as well. We'll see you later.